It was a sunny day in the early 1990s when Adelo and Lola stood at the altar exchanging vows surrounded by friends and family. Lola was expecting twins, and Adelo truly believed she'd make a wonderful mother. After the church wedding, the couple stepped outside to be congratulated by their loved ones. But the joyful moment quickly turned into chaos. People gasped and stared at Lola in shock. Adelo spun around to see her collapsing, clearly in distress. He rushed her to the hospital, anxiously waiting for answers while the news played in the background. Eventually, a doctor delivered the heartbreaking news. Lola had suffered a miscarriage. Worse still, the damage was so severe she would never be able to have children again. The tragedy left both of them devastated, and Lola began to withdraw into a deep depression. Adelo did his best to lift her spirits, suggesting they adopt, but Lola remained quiet and distant. One day, they visited a local convent for a blessing. The convent also housed an orphanage. While there, Lola caught sight of a young girl with visible scars on her face. As Adelo spoke to the abbess, he suddenly realized Lola had wandered off. He found her sitting nearby, listening to two children, a boy and girl, both around 8. The abbess shared some background on the orphanage and mentioned they were always looking for loving families to adopt the children. She introduced the couple to the twins, Tin and Tina. As they hugged Lola tightly, frightened by a sudden clap of thunder, she felt an emotional connection. Touched by the children's innocence and fear, Lola immediately expressed a desire to adopt them, although Adelo hesitated, thinking the children were older than he'd hoped for. He eventually agreed after seeing how much it meant to Lola. The abbess provided everything they needed for a trial adoption. During the car ride home, the kids asked Adelo to turn down the loud music. To lighten the mood, they sang together, bringing warmth and joy into the car. When they arrived at the house, the children were thrilled by its size and excitedly explored every corner. Adelo noticed how happy Lola seemed and vowed to do whatever it took to keep that joy alive. Lola prepared dinner and went to call the kids, finding them playing in the nursery she had once set up for her unborn babies. The sight shook her momentarily, but she composed herself and guided them to their new bedroom. Before dinner, the children presented the couple with symbolic gifts. Tin handed Adelo a replica of Jesus' crown, while Tina gave Lola a rosary, encouraging her to find comfort in faith. As they began eating, the children paused, watching Adelo. They reminded him to say grace. Though neither he nor Lola were devout, they went along with it to make the children feel welcome. Later that night, Lola tucked the twins into bed. They innocently asked her why she didn't have kids of her own. Lola opened up, explaining she couldn't have children. Rather than being saddened, the twins encouraged her to pray for a miracle. Although Lola found their deep religious belief a little too idealistic, she respected their perspective, knowing they'd been raised by nuns. The next morning, as the children played outside, Lola called them in for breakfast. This time, when asked to say grace, she declined, admitting that her faith had been shaken. The children requested she allow them to perform a special act, promising it would help renew her belief in God. To Lola's shock, Tina began to suffocate Tin with a plastic. Just as she tried to intervene, Tina reminded her that she had promised not to interrupt. Frozen in horror, she watched as Tin gasped for air, until he finally pointed at something unseen. Tina stopped. Tin claimed he had just seen the Lord and asked him to bless Lola with a child. Despite the terrifying display, the twins went right back to playing, and Lola pushed the incident out of her mind. At school, the children faced teasing from a bully named Pedrito, who called them Dracula's kid. Confused, they later asked Lola who Dracula was and why someone would say such a thing. They also questioned why they felt so different from other kids. In response, Lola shared something deeply personal. She revealed the leg brace she wore, showing the kids that she had a prosthetic leg. She explained how she once worked in films, and during a shoot, a fire broke out. Though she was rescued, her leg couldn't be saved. Lola told them that people tend to pick on those who don't fit in, not because they're weak, but because they're unique. The twins, however, were convinced that God had saved Lola for the very purpose of being their mother. To lift their spirits, Lola put on a movie for the kids while spending some quiet time with Adelo. As days passed, the family grew closer, but Lola couldn't ignore the children's intense religious views. They often quoted Bible verses to explain everyday things which unsettled her. Adelo, on the other hand, thought their behavior was normal given their upbringing in a convent. One evening, the twins asked Lola to play a game with them since they were struggling to fall asleep. The game started off lighthearted with pillow fights and hiding, but then things took a dark turn. While hiding, the children suddenly attacked Lola, wrapping a sheet around her head and attempting to suffocate her. They shouted at her to see the Lord and pray for a miracle. Lola struggled to escape, but Tin held the sheet so tightly she couldn't break free. The experience terrified her. When it was over, the children came to her, apologizing and asking to be punished for what they'd done. The children once told Lola that back at the convent, they were punished with canings if they ever misbehaved. Not long after moving in, Lola's dog, Koki, began acting strangely, barking non-stop at the twins. She tried to calm the dog, but it bit her hand and ran off. One night, the twins wore eerie Chinese-style masks and lured Koki back inside. They drugged the dog and disturbingly brought knives into the picture. The next morning, Lola found the children covered in a red substance and assumed they'd been playing with jam, until Adalo realized it was actually blood. The kids took the couple to Koki's lifeless body, explaining they had poisoned the dog in an attempt to cleanse its soul and bring it back to life. The sight devastated Lola, who broke down in tears. The children hugged Adalo, apologizing, while Lola was left to clean up the horrifying mess. Later, she watched as the children prayed outside, still wearing their blood-stained clothes. That night, she caught them crawling on their knees. To her shock, they had tied metal forks to their kneecaps. Tin collapsed in pain and Lola rushed to clean their wounds. He then asked if Koki might return from the dead if they prayed hard enough. Lola tried to gently explain that taking the Bible literally could be dangerous and compared it to fairy tales they read in school. The children remained convinced, though, that Lola would one day come to believe as they did. Eventually, overwhelmed by their constant biblical references, Lola banned religious discussions in the house. The twins were upset but had no choice but to comply. On New Year's Eve, the family shared a peaceful evening exchanging gifts. Tin bonded with Adalo, while Lola and Tina baked in the kitchen. However, the celebration was cut short when Lola suddenly collapsed. She was rushed to the hospital where the doctor delivered shocking news: she was pregnant. It felt like a miracle. Lola, who had once been told she could never have children, could hardly believe it. Months later, the twins attended church, where Pedrito, the same boy who bullied them before, made another hurtful comment. Tin looked visibly shaken, but Tina calmly told him that God would make things right. After the mass, Pedrito suddenly collapsed in the middle of the church and had to be hospitalized. A few days later, Lola received a call from Pedrito's mother, who revealed that her son had last been seen with Tin and Tina before the incident. Although she admitted Pedrito had teased the twins, she said what happened to him was far too cruel to be justified. Lola didn't want to believe her kids were capable of anything so dark and quickly ended the call, but doubt crept in. She went into their room and opened the Bible on the nightstand, only to find disturbing drawings, one of the kids killing Koki and another of them attacking Pedrito with slingshots. She showed them to Adalo, who dismissed them, suggesting the kids were just expressing how happy they were that their bully got what he deserved. The next morning, the children noticed their Bible and other religious items missing. They found Lola putting them into a box, explaining they could have them back when they were older. The twins didn't protest but weren't pleased. Soon after, Lola woke up one day and saw the children happily playing with Adalo, but then they pointed at her, and she was horrified to see strands of her hair falling out. In a panic, she shaved her head and told Adalo she believed the twins were punishing her for rejecting their beliefs. Desperate for answers, she returned to the convent and asked the abbess if the children had ever shown strange behavior. The abbess, however, said the twins were not like other children, they were angels, and implied that it was Lola who couldn't see their purity. Later, Lola received devastating news. Pedrito had died. Fear began to take root. She started distancing herself from the children, her trust eroding. One day, when Adalo was about to leave for work, she begged him to stay. He reassured her he'd be back soon and encouraged her to get some rest. When she awoke, she found herself tied to the bed. Tin stood in front of her, mocking her by imitating a comedian and using her leg brace as a prop. Then Tina walked in with a tray of food, saying the milk contained a magic powder to help the baby grow strong. Lola panicked, suspecting the powder might be the same poison they'd used on the dog. She refused to drink it. As Tin distracted her with a skit, Tina asked for his help. He picked up a syringe and moved toward Lola, ready to inject the milk directly into her belly. Screaming, she tore herself free, ran to the kitchen and grabbed a knife, shouting at the twins to stay away. Just then, Adalo returned, holding a bouquet of flowers. The children rushed to him, saying they were only trying to help Lola relax. When the couple examined the magic powder, it turned out to be nothing but sugar. Adalo gave Lola a concerned look, unsure of what to believe. Suddenly, Lola's water broke and they rushed to the hospital. After the delivery, Lola woke up in her hospital bed. Adalo reassured her everything had gone well, their baby boy had arrived safely. Tin and Tina came in to greet their new little brother, but Lola was hesitant. She wasn't ready to welcome them with open arms just yet. Lola then told Adalo that she wanted their son to choose his own beliefs when he was old enough. But Adalo reminded her gently, it wasn't just up to them anymore. Sometimes the majority decides what path a child takes. After some time, Lola and her newborn return home. The children are out in the pool, enjoying themselves, while Lola goes about her daily chores. She heads over to the chicken coop to collect some eggs, unaware that the children have carefully orchestrated something in her absence. As soon as she steps away, the twins spring into action. Tina opens the box where their religious books have been locked away. Meanwhile, Tina picks up the baby and holds him upside down as Tina reads aloud from select Bible passages. They attempt to tell Adalo about their plan, but he brushes them off, too focused on playing his video game. On her way back to the house with the eggs, Lola catches sight of the children near the pool holding the baby. Alarmed, she sprints toward them and pulls the baby, who had been submerged underwater, into her arms. Fortunately, the baby is still alive. Enraged, Lola slaps the twins and lashes out at Dallo, accusing him of being careless and allowing the children to endanger their child. The twins try to explain that they were only trying to help the baby, but Lola is furious. Dallo snatches the Bible from them as they cry and call him father. He tells them coldly that they're not his children. Eventually, the couple decides to return Teen and Tina to the convent. A few days later, Lola and Allo go out for dinner. Lola expresses guilt about whether she was too harsh and questions if she was ever truly a good mother to the twins. Allo urges her to focus on their future, but Lola still feels heavy with remorse for leaving the children behind. When the baby begins to cry, Lola refuses to pick him up, insisting Allo do it for once. This frustrates him and he angrily demands that she comfort the child. Since returning the twins, tension has been growing between Lola and Allo. She feels neglected, especially because he's constantly working and rarely at home, making her feel like she's raising the baby alone. Meanwhile, at the convent, Teen and Tina have settled back in. That evening, the abbess leads them through their nightly prayers. She reads a verse warning about consequences. You reap what you sow. The twins exchange knowing glances, seemingly hoping Allo will face divine justice for taking away their Bible. Back home, Lola and Allo drive through a heavy storm. Suddenly, Allo almost hits something on the road. He thinks it might have been a deer, but they aren't sure. Once at home, Lola puts the baby down to sleep and finds Allo watching TV. She tells him she wants to rest, but he asks her to stay and keep him company. He then notices Lola has taken off her wedding ring and realizes she's considering leaving him. He apologizes, finally acknowledging how distant he's been. The TV signal goes out, prompting Allo to head up to the roof to fix the antenna. Moments later, the baby starts crying but then abruptly stops. Lola considers going to soothe him but changes her mind once silence returns. She calls for Allo to come back but hears noises from above, assuming he tripped. Feeling hopeful, Lola slips her ring back on, deciding to give her marriage another shot. But the house lights begin to flicker again. The TV signal cuts out once more. When she hears strange noises in the distance, she gets up to investigate. She finds tiny wet footprints leading through the house. Following them, she enters a room where the children's favorite song is playing on the radio. She calls out for Teen and Tina, but no one answers. She turns off the radio just as the power goes out completely. Lola tries flipping the breaker, but it has no effect. She calls out for Allo again, but there's no response. Stepping outside, she's horrified to see Allo on the roof engulfed in flames. Rain is still pouring down, and Lola recalls how the children once described thunder and lightning as God's wrath. She races back into the house to get to the rooftop, but freezes in terror as she watches Allo fall. He crashes through the ceiling, writhing in pain. Lola rushes to find a blanket to put out the flames. But in his panic, Allo stumbles over the sofa and accidentally ignites it. Fire spreads quickly, and Lola can only scream in horror as her husband burns to death before her eyes. Snapping back to reality, she remembers the baby and runs upstairs, but the crib is empty. She frantically searches every room, shouting for her child as the fire consumes the home. Overwhelmed with grief, she collapses into a room and sobs. Then her eyes catch the faint mark left behind by a crucifix the twins once hung. In a moment of desperation, she grabs a cloth and presses it over her face, trying to suffocate herself, hoping that by doing so she might finally see God and get the answers she so desperately seeks. She gasps for air but holds the cloth longer, staggering to her feet after several minutes. A faint sound leads her down the hallway. To her shock, the baby is suddenly back in his crib. She clutches him tightly and escapes the burning house, eventually collapsing in the rain as she watches her home crumble into ashes. Lola wakes up in the hospital. The abbess arrives and explains what happened. Allo had been struck by lightning while on the roof, which triggered the fire. Miraculously, the baby survived unharmed. Lola asks if Tin and Tina were also caught in the fire. The abbess, confused, says that the twins had never left the convent. She's absolutely certain. She had personally seen them that morning. This revelation stuns Lola. It finally dawns on her the twins had never truly done anything wrong. Through it all they were innocent. At Alo's funeral, Lola stands by as he's laid to rest, and in a twist of fate it's revealed that she has formally adopted Tin and Tina after all.